Hey y'all, welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Jen and I make videos about easy mixed media and journaling techniques using inexpensive materials. And do I have a project for you today? Join me in making my own stamps out of supplies from the Dollar Tree. As an added bonus, I'll show you how to make your own stamp pad with acrylic paint and other supplies from Dollar Tree. I hope you'll stick around to the end. I welcome you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future frugal fun. So, come on guys, let's do it.
How we like to wake up in slow motion, think about the things we never.
Okay guys, are you ready? So what I first did is I started with a pack of stamps from Dollar Tree and this craft knife set that they have. I really wanted to try out the craft knife, or you can call it an exacto knife, to see the quality and if it cuts well. I really like that it comes with the different blades. I started with just a normal blade. I picked the one that looked most like the exacto knife. And later on I will switch them out and try a different size blade. I also got a pack of these erasers from Dollar Tree to try them out and to see, how well I can carve into them. So the first step is to draw your design that you want on your eraser. And I will tell you ahead of time that you're going to want to do something that's very simple and doesn't have too many corners and isn't too small, because it's going to be hard to dig out the rubber. And another tip, you see that one stamp that says I feel sad. I ended up flipping that to make a new design, but I will tell you that that stamp will turn out to be backwards, so you need to put on your design backwards, and you can do that by making your design on a piece of tracing paper, then flipping it over, tracing that design, flipping it over again to the front side, laying it down on your eraser, and rub your design onto the eraser. That will transfer it. So you can also look up other videos on how to transfer designs to rubber stamps if that's kind of confusing to you and you really want to write out a phrase. So I'm just starting to carve out my design, and I'm going to try to explain this as best I can, but what you're going to do is you're going to create a straight line to outline your design. Then to carve out the rubber, you're going to trace along it again, but you're going to angle the blade. So what you're doing is you're cutting a sort of divot in the like a shape of a V, the letter V, around your design, and that's how you're going to get out the rubber with just an exacto knife. If you would like, you can invest in a carving tool, and Speedball is a really good brand, and I will show you my carving tool towards the end of the video, and you'll see if it's any easier on these erasers with that tool. So once I think I've gotten a lot of the rubber out, I do a practice stamping. I do a test to see what I have yet to carve out. So it took a lot of getting used to using this tool, and after a while you start to get kind of intuitive on how to get the rubber out. I ended up just chopping the stamp smaller, and then I'm just kind of cutting it like I would cut an apple. For this part, I thought, okay, well, it'd be a lot easier to cut those angles, those awkward angles off of the eraser. And the Exacto knife from Dollar Tree comes with this blade. It's kind of like, it just reminds me of the shape of a flathead. It's squared. And I just used it straight up and down to kind of saw off the eraser. You could also use a box cutter if you want to cut down the eraser, but it's so much easier to cut these erasers down smaller, I found, because of those angles that they have. So here, I actually switched the blade to a much smaller blade, and I am going to tell you the name of it. It is the size 3 in the Dollar Tree blade, and it's very tiny, and I actually liked this way more with the the one I started off with, which was, let me flip this and see, which was the size 11. So definitely go for a smaller blade on these small erasers because it'll work like a pencil. And yeah, so I just kind of moved in a circular angled motion to get the rubber out. So here I'm just skipping ahead to another design I created. I tried to do kind of like a fun, festive confetti design. I don't know how it turned out, but once you start stamping a lot with these and you start to create a pattern, you get really, really interesting marks on your papers. So here you can see it kind of a lot better. I'm tracing like perpendicular, and now I'm tracing at an angle, and you'll see it, the strip will lift right up. Okay, so yeah, this one is just some lines, and I was hoping I could create little lines so that I could stamp on my journal and have some writing space. And here I'm chopping down the eraser just to make it easier and more sturdy. And you can see the blade, that squared blade right there. So with this X-Acto knife, I would say it will cut, it will do the job, especially if you have like some paper projects that you want to cut. But it's very flimsy, the plastic part. They use plastic pieces to contain the blades instead of a metal one like the real X-Acto knife. Sometimes the blade will slip out, so you got to be kind of careful. And sometimes when you unscrew it to change out the blades, the plastic piece doesn't really come apart very easily. So it was kind of a struggle to switch back and forth, but overall for $1.25, this X-Acto knife worked. It did the trick. So with this stamp, I'm showing you my real carving tool, and I'm starting with like the smallest blade possible. And you can see how the blade goes in like I think it's called a divot into a V shape. And it's cutting away where I'm kind of, I call it writing if I'm drawing with it. Okay, so you're not going to carve away your design. You're going to carve away what is outside of your design. And this is the stamp. This is the stamp where I realized that I forgot to do my design backwards. It looks fine now, but once you stamp it, it will be backwards. In this part, I switched to a larger blade, just to, carve away more of the design. So here, here I got really mad, and I came up with a way to fix it. I just cut away the word, and now it's just a lonely little girl stamp. So these erasers don't leave a lot of space for you to create a design, but they're really fun to practice on. The erasers themselves are like, I don't know how to explain it. They're like drier. They're like kind of dry. So it was kind of like crumbly almost, to kind of carve all the rubber away. This was my favorite design because this cut perfectly. It was very, very easy to cut away all the negative space on here. Speedball also makes real rubber to make stamps out of. I showed it earlier. The rubber is called Speedball Speedy Carve. Okay, and that's the more professional rubber. And this one, if you feel it, it's much smoother than a regular eraser that you would buy at the store. And I think the purpose is like the erasers at the store, like I think they have like grit in them or something, or sand, because they're meant to like erase marks or graphite. So these aren't really used for that. So it's like they have like a different texture. So if you're in a bind, of course, you can hit up your Dollar Tree or your Walmart and get these materials and start with just some simple supplies. So again, I'm just cutting in a straight perpendicular angle, and then I'm going next to that at a slanted angle to create that divot where the rubber comes out.
She calls me day and night. I'm sorry, girl, you just don't make me feel right. I never
And here I'm going to be testing my stamp. Whatever marks are left on once you stamp it onto a piece of paper, you can use that as a guide to show you where you need to cut away. You can leave it really textured with like lots of lines around your design, or you can make it more clean by subtracting all the excess rubber. Here I'm using some scraps and that straight blade, and I'm cutting, I'm just kind of slicing it like bread, trying to make them the same width, and they created like triangles. So I'll show you what I do with those later. So these are the tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree, and what I'm doing is I'm hot gluing them with Gorilla Glue together, and then taking one of the blades that came in my pack to clean up any kind of glue that kind of squished out. And don't forget this part, I forgot this part on some of the stamps, but stamp the block first so that you'll know which stamp you're using. Then I use the hot glue to glue the eraser to the other side. And voila, I created a stamp. Can you believe it? I imagine you can get really, really complicated. You can make a huge like block out of these tumbling tower blocks, and you can put all kinds of little individual stamps on that block to make like a larger stamp. I mean, the possibilities are endless. I would try out some different rubber stamps. If you visit Walmart, I would definitely try to buy some of theirs just to see what the difference is. You could even order a speedy carve or a carving tool, a speedball carving tool, and practice it on cheap erasers just to get used to it first, because you don't want to waste all of your speedy carve rubber. This girl looks a little creepy, but she's okay. I was just working within the space I was given. I do like her. Once you stamp a lot, you create a pattern, and it looks way much better than if you were to stamp stamp just one time. And right here, I'm kind of giving myself a guide so that I can tell exactly where her face is going to land once I stamp, because it doesn't exactly match up with the picture where the picture is located. So I'm just kind of giving myself a guide on the front. Okay, so now I'm getting those little leftover triangles, and I just don't want to waste anything, and I think it'll provide a really cool design if I glue these little triangles on here. And here's another cool trick. In case you didn't know, you can use your hot glue gun to act as a stamp. So this could be even easier if you don't want to try the carving tools. You could still build out these tumbling tower blocks to make a larger mounting block, and then you can just make different designs with your glue gun. And this, believe it or not, really will work. It'll stamp that exact design. So I'm trying to make a little abstract box, so you could put write a date in there or something, and just dots and then the other one was dots to add some added texture. So now I have my stamps, but I don't really have a lot of cool stamp pads and cool colors. So I took my acrylic paints that I love, and I got some felt from Dollar Tree, and I am stapling 4 pieces together. And I'm going to take my nice paint, the beautiful color I like, and I'm just going to kind of brush it on. You don't want it to be globby. You want the pad to absorb your paint. But this is so nifty, and it stamps just like a normal stamp. You would not be able to tell the difference. So here I'm just opening to a blank page, and I'm going to show you how it looks. I love how this has the stamp makes different textures each time I stamp. I still get really cute ghost prints like you would if you're using regular supplies. And I was able to fill up both pages with this stamp pad. The top sort of dried a little bit, and so I didn't have any more paint on there to keep creating later on. So just refresh it. When you're ready to go back to it, just refresh it with like a thin coat of more paint. So now I made another one. Remember, 4 pieces in a rectangle shape or whatever shape you like. And I just stapled mine. Because my sewing machine is not working very well. And this was so much easier and so much quicker. And also another tip would be, if you are afraid that it's drying out a little bit, maybe spray a spritz of water on top of the pad just to see if you can get any more ink out of it. But isn't it cute? It looks like a real stamp. I just can't believe it. So now, like I said before, I'm using these to make a cute pattern. Like, she doesn't really look interesting on her own. She kind of looks creepy, but putting it in a pattern is really making my eye much happier. And now I'm using the hot glue gun dots. It's so neat. They kind of look like bubbles, but here I was trying to indicate stars. But you can use these pages on, the backgrounds of your journals. That's what my plan was. You can then use different colors. Then you can experiment on stamping on, different types of paper. You can use like embossing powder. I bet that would look really cool. How awesome will you feel once you're done making a stamp from practically nothing, an eraser and an X-Acto knife from Dollar Tree? You're gonna be so proud. It doesn't matter how bad it looks or primitive looking. It's so cool if you just make more stamps in a group like that. It just looks really neat. And just imagine being able to emboss with them too. So I use that little simple line stamp. That's a really easy way to create lines on paper that doesn't have lines. This way you don't really need expensive materials. You don't need to order stuff on scrapbook.com or Amazon. You can get paper from a thrift store. Use junk mail. People give paper away all the time. And yeah, make your own papers. You can do it. So now my little bonus was these little triangles, and they didn't stamp evenly because of course some of them were different thicknesses, but if you push really hard you get a really interesting print on there. And make sure to clean your stamp in between stamping, because your old ink or paint color will definitely show through when you try to switch colors. So it's good to try to clean those off. And yeah, I'm just experimenting with this confetti one that I created just to see if I can make anything interesting. It really is a cool texture. Could make a whole page of texture out of it and then use it for collage. So I was really happy with this. I'm just it's so awesome. You feel so good about yourself after you make your own stamp. And believe it or not, it is possible with just an X-Acto knife and a rubber eraser that you get from the store. So this is what I ended up doing with my flower paper. It became collage fodder. It became scrapbook paper. And it was my starting foundation piece for this journal spread. So yeah, just imagine it, using different colors. If you are going to try this out, please let me know below. If you've ever tried this, I would love to hear your thoughts about it. Have you ever used an X-Acto knife? Have you ever even thought of it? I did look it up on YouTube, and I saw one lady who carves in the really nice white rubber with an X-Acto knife, because she does it for precision for small designs. So I knew it was possible. So I gave it a go. It does take a little bit of time to get used to. It can be frustrating, but you've only spent $2.50, so it's worth a shot. Well, that's it for me today, guys. Thanks for being with me. Remember, you are creative and you are loved.